Hi students, myself Satish Kumar Konidala, Assistant Professor, School of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Vignan Foundation for Science, Technology and Research, Guntur. In previous video, we discussed about the diuretics. In that diuretics, we discussed about the different classes of diuretics like carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, thiazide diuretics, and loop diuretics. In that we specifically discussed about the chemistry of these classification of the drugs, mechanism of action along with their structural activity relationship. In this video we are going to discuss about the remaining classification of diuretic drugs along with their chemical properties, mechanism of action, structural activity relationship. After completion of watching this video, students can understand the chemistry of diuretics. Specifically, in this video, potassium sparing diuretics, osmotic diuretics, and miscellaneous agents. And understand the drug metabolic pathways, adverse effects, and therapeutic value. They can know the structural activity relationship of this particular classification of diuretic drugs. And finally, they can able to study the chemical synthesis and chemical properties of the particular classification of diuretic agents. The contents of this video includes chemical properties, mechanism of action, structural activity relationship of potassium sparing diuretics, osmotic diuretics, and miscellaneous diuretics. Let us see one by one. In previous video, we already discussed about the loop diuretics or high ceiling diuretics. So that means the loop diuretics are nothing but the diuretics which will act on loop of Henle. So that is particularly ascending loop of Henle. Ascending loop of Henle, that means there is some sodium, potassium, chloride, co-transporters are there. So on that co-transporter, they will act and they can inhibit the sodium reabsorption from the lumen into the bloodstream. So we already discussed about this, and we already discussed the structural activity relationship and mechanism of action of these loop diuretics or high ceiling diuretics. And next one is the potassium sparing diuretics. The potassium sparing diuretics are again subdivided into two types: aldosterone inhibitors and inhibitors of renal epithelium sodium channels. The potassium sparing diuretics are again subdivided into aldosterone inhibitors and inhibitors of renal epithelium sodium channels. So first we'll see about the aldosterone inhibitors. Aldosterone inhibitors. Examples of aldosterone inhibitors are nothing but spironolactone, carenolone, Examples of aldosterone inhibitors are nothing but the spironolactone, candranolone, candranoate, amphenone B, metropone, and eplerenone. When you see in the chemical structures of spironolactone, so it is generally a derivative of progesterone. So that means these drugs having the steroid moiety. So this is the steroid moiety, and this steroid moiety having a substitution of lactone ring. So there is a lactone ring is present as a substrate to this steroid moiety. Also it is having the acetyl thiol group at the second position as the substrate. That means the spironolactone is nothing but the steroidal moiety. It is also a derivative of progesterone. So it consisting of steroid group. And to this steroid moiety there is a lactone ring is attached. And at the second position it consisting of acetyl thiol group. Acetyl thiol group. So this is the structure of spirolactone. So the metabolite of spirolactone is nothing but canranone, and when you observe the difference between the spirolactone and canranone is nothing but, so there is an absence of acetyl thiol group in the canranone. So that means the structure is like this. And to this lactone ring is attached. So this is the carnose structure. That means, so at the second position, so there is no acetyl thiol group in case of canranone. So the metabolite of spironolactone is nothing but canranone, and it is also a active diuretic. So that a metabolite of this spironolactone also a active diuretic, that is the canranone. And other aldosterone inhibitors are nothing but canranoate, amphenone B, metarapone and elprinone. Metarapone and elprinone. So these are the other types of aldosterone inhibitors. So coming to the mechanism of action in case of aldosterone inhibitors. So when you see in the mechanism of action in case of aldosterone inhibitors, these aldosterone inhibitors will inhibit the aldosterone action at lumen membrane. So that means the action of aldosterone is nothing but this aldosterone will combine with the mineralocorticoid receptor, and they can express the or they can produce the different types of proteins like sodium, potassium, ATPase proteins, or amiloride sends to sodium channels. When it is combined with the mineralocorticoid receptor, and they can express the production of proteins like sodium potassium ATPase channel and amiloride sends to sodium channel. So when the aldosterone is blocked or inhibited, aldosterone is inhibited, and that can not able to produce the sodium potassium ATPase channel and sodium channel which is sensitive to the amiloride. So that means the production of sodium channel, that means the production of sodium potassium ATPase channel and sodium channels are inhibited. So that means they are not available for the reabsorption of sodium from the lumen to the bloodstream. So in this way, the aldosterone inhibitors will shows their diuretic activity. So I will repeat the mechanism of action once again. The action of aldosterone at the lumen membrane is nothing but when the aldosterone is combined with the mineralocorticoid receptor, then they can able to express the synthesis of proteins like sodium potassium ATPase channel and sodium channel which is sensitive to the amiloride. So these two channels are required. These two channels are required to reabsorb the sodium from lumen. So lumen to bloodstream. So this is the bloodstream. So from lumen to the bloodstream, these two channels are required to reabsorb the sodium from lumen to bloodstream. So when there is a aldosterone is inhibited by the aldosterone inhibitors like spironolactone, then these two channels are automatically inhibited, thereby the reabsorption of sodium from the lumen to the bloodstream is inhibited. Okay? The aldosterone inhibitors bind to the mineralocorticoid receptor. So that means instead of aldosterone, they can bind to the mineralocorticoid receptor, thereby they inhibit the production of proteins like sodium potassium ATPase. So in that way, it is also inhibiting the reabsorption of sodium from lumen to the bloodstream. And the second subclass of Potassium sparing diuretics is nothing but inhibitors of renal epithelial sodium channel. So that means the agents which can able to inhibit the sodium channels which are present in the renal epithelium. Examples of this class are nothing but triamterene amiloride. Triamterene and amiloride. Triamterene is nothing but a derivative of pteridine nucleus. Triamterene is nothing but a derivative of pteridine, and amiloride is the derivative of pyrazine. So that means the basic functional groups. That means the basic functional group which is present in the triamterene is nothing but pteridine, and in case of amiloride, the basic functional moiety is nothing but the pyrazine. Okay, so there is some substituents to the pteridine nucleus in case of triamterene, and in case of amiloride, there is a substituents are present to the pyrazine nucleus. And when you see the mechanism of action in case of these sodium channel inhibitors, so here we can see the mechanism of action in case of inhibitors of sodium channels. So that means, as I said that, so there are two types of proteins can be expressed or produced from the complex of aldosterone plus mineralocorticoid receptor. So when the aldosterone is bind to the mineralocorticoid receptor, then there is a production of sodium, potassium, ATPase. So this is the one type of protein, and another one is the sodium channel proteins. So this is generally sensitive to the amiloride. So that's why it is called as amiloride sensitive sodium channel. Amiloride sensitive sodium channel. So in case of sodium potassium ATPase, spironolactone, and another one is the canranone. These two are acting on the sodium potassium ATPase. That means when they are bind to the mineralocorticoid, so that means when they are competitively bind to the mineralocorticoid receptor instead of aldosterone, or when they will prevent the binding of aldosterone to the mineralocorticoid receptor, so this will be blocked. So when these two inhibiting the binding of aldosterone to mineralocorticoid receptor, then they ultimately inhibit the production of sodium potassium ATPase proteins or sodium channel proteins. So in this way, spironolactone and canranone will shows the diuretic activity. But in case of amiloride and triamterene, so when you see in these two drugs, so they can directly inhibit the sodium channels. So they are directly inhibit the sodium channels which are present at the lumen site. So thereby the sodium reabsorption is decreased. So there is a difference between the aldosterone inhibitors and sodium channel inhibitors. In case of aldosterone inhibitors, they will inhibit the binding of aldosterone to the mineralocorticoid receptors. So thereby they are preventing the production of sodium potassium ATPase channel and sodium channels at the lumen site. But in case of amiloride and triamterene, so these are nothing but the inhibitors of sodium channels, and these two will directly inhibit the sodium channel which is present at the lumen site. There is a inhibition of sodium reabsorption takes place. So thereby there is an increasing of sodium concentration in the urine and it is excreted. So this is the mechanism of action in case of inhibitors of sodium channels. So next class of diuretics is nothing but osmotic diuretics. Osmotic diuretics, in that examples are urea, isosorbide, mannitol. Urea is also called as carbamide. So that means it consisting of carbonyl group which is attached to the two amine groups. In case of isosorbide, So isosorbide is nothing but the fusion of two furan molecules or furan groups or furan rings. Fusion of two furan rings. So there is a difference between the isosorbide dinitrate and isosorbide. In which class we discussed about the isosorbide dinitrate? The isosorbide dinitrate is nothing but the organic nitrate. So which is already discussed in case of anti-anginal drugs. Anti-anginal drug. So in that case we already discussed the isosorbide dinitrate. The difference between the isosorbide dinitrate and isosorbide is nothing but, so in case of isosorbide dinitrate, so instead of hydrogen there is a nitro group is present, and here also instead of hydrogen there is a nitro group is attached. So then it is called as the isosorbide dinitrate. Okay, but in case of diuretics, only isosorbide is sufficient to act as the diuretic. So isosorbide is nothing but the fusion of two furan molecules, and it is having the hydroxyl substitutions on the two rings. And another example of osmotic diuretic is nothing but mannitol, which is a sugar moiety, and it is also called as osmitol. Osmitol, and this mannitol is similar to that of the sorbitol. Similar to that of the sorbitol. So that means it's consisting of a carbon chain with hydrogen and hydroxyl substitutions. The mechanism of action in case of osmotic diuretics is nothing but they can prevent the reabsorption water at the proximal converted tubule. So they can prevent the reabsorption of water. Reabsorption of water is prevented at the proximal converted tubule. So the reabsorption of the water is prevented at the proximal converted tubule. The mechanism of action in case of osmotic diuretics is nothing but the osmotic diuretics will prevent the reabsorption of water at proximal converted tubule. So at the proximal converted tubule, these osmotic diuretics will prevent the reabsorption of water. So this can be prevented by increasing the osmolarity at proximal converted tubule. So mannitol is considered as the prototype of osmotic diuretics. So when the mannitol is present at the proximal converted tubule, that mannitol will increase the osmolarity in the lumen site. So when you observe this diagram, when there is a presence of mannitol, and this mannitol will increase the osmolarity pressure at the lumen site, thereby secretion of water from the bloodstream into the lumen is increased. So in this way, the mannitol or the osmotic diuretics will decrease the reabsorption of water. Once again, I am repeating the mechanism of action in case of osmotic diuretics. They can prevent the reabsorption of water at proximal converted tubule. And this can be done by increasing the osmolarity of lumen content at proximal converted tubule by the osmotic diuretics like mannitol. So when the mannitol is present at the lumen site of the proximal converted tubule, then it will increase the osmotic pressure of the lumen content. When the osmotic pressure is increased, thereby secretion of water from the bloodstream into the lumen is increased. So in this way, they will show the diuretic activity. The next class of diuretics is nothing but purine and xanthine derivatives. So these purine xanthine derivatives having the purine ring as the basic structure in there. The next class of diuretics are nothing but purine or xanthine derivatives. Purine or xanthine derivatives. These purine or xanthine derivatives having the purine ring in their structure as basic moiety. So examples of purine and xanthine derivatives are nothing but caffeine, theophylline and theobromine. So these three are the caffeine, theophylline, theobromine, and these drugs having the purine moiety as basic structure, as basic ring in their structure, and also having different substance, also having different substance at R1, R2, at R1, R3 and R7 positions. So likewise theophylline, theobromine also having different substance. Another examples of this class are aminophylline. Another examples of this class are aminophylline, xantrol, xanturil. So these are the two other examples of purine and xanthine derivatives. So these drugs will act as the diuretics as same. So these purine and xanthine derivatives will inhibit the reabsorption of sodium at proximal converted tubule. So these drugs will inhibit the reabsorption of sodium. So the sodium reabsorption is inhibited at proximal converted tubule. And so generally these are very weak in diuretic activity. So these drugs are very weak in diuretic activity, and these are generally not used in. So these drugs are rarely used in nowadays. And among these purine and xanthine derivatives, aminophylline. So the aminophylline is mostly used drug in some of the situations. The xanthine and purine derivatives are very weak in their diuretic activity, and these drugs are rarely used in nowadays. And among these xanthine or purine derivatives, aminophylline is the one of the drugs which is mostly used among these drugs. And coming to the mechanism of action in case of purine and xanthine derivatives, these drugs will inhibit the sodium reabsorption at proximal converted tubule, and also they can increase the renal plasma flow to the glomerulus. So thereby they can promote the high amount of glomerular filtration rate. So this is the mechanism of action. I repeat that mechanism of action of purine and xanthine derivatives. So they can decreases the sodium reabsorption at proximal converted tubule, and also they can increase the plasma flow to the glomerulus. So they can increase the plasma flow to the glomerulus, thereby the glomerular filtration rate is increased. And so when you seeing the adverse effect of these class of drugs, so they are nothing but they can act on the central nervous system, thereby it stimulates. So when you seeing the adverse effect of purine and xanthine derivatives, The purine and xanthine derivatives have the adverse effects like it will stimulate the central nervous system. It will stimulate the central nervous system and also producing the vomiting sensation. In the next class of diuretics are nothing but sulfonamide diuretics. Sulfonamide diuretics. These sulfonamide diuretics has the same diuretic action as that of the thiazides. So these sulfonamide drugs having the same mechanism of action as same as that of the thiazides. Examples for this class of drugs are phenothiazone, chlorthalidone. So when you see in the chemical structure of phenothiazine, it consisting of benzimidazole ring, and to this sulfonamide group is attached. And the basic structure in sulfonamide diuretics are nothing but it consisting of a phenyl ring. To this phenyl ring there is a sulfonamyl moiety and there is a chlorine substitution onto the phenyl ring. Chlorine substitution to the phenyl ring. And in case of here also, in case of chlorthalidone also, so there is a phenyl group, and to this phenyl group sulfonamyl moiety is there, and also chlorine is present. Chlorine is present as a substituent. And remaining substituents are varying based upon the different types of sulfonamide derivatives. Another examples of sulfonamide derivatives are metazolone, indipamide, clopamide. So these are the another example for sulfonamide derivatives. Here also we can observe the basic moiety like phenyl. There is a presence of phenyl group. To this phenyl group there is a sulfonamide substitution and chlorine substitution is present. In case of indipamide also, so the phenyl group is present, and to this phenyl group sulfonamide group is attached, and chlorine also present as the substituent. And remaining substituents is based upon the type of sulfonamide moiety. The basic moiety is nothing but it consisting of a phenyl group, and to this phenyl group sulfonamide group is attached as the substituent and also having chlorine as the substituent. Okay. In case of clopamide also, so we can observe the basic moiety phenyl group, sulfonamide substitution and chlorine substitution. Other examples of sulfonamide diuretics are nothing but zipamide, chloroxidone, zipamide and chloroxidone. Here also we can find the sulfonamide diuretic basic moiety, that is nothing but phenyl group containing sulfonamide and chlorine substituents. So here also we can observe the basic moiety. So to this basic moiety there is other substituents so which are depend upon the type of sulfonamide diuretic. As I said that these sulfonamide derivatives will shows the diuretic activity as same as that of the thiazide diuretics. And so we know that how these thiazide derivatives will shows their diuretic activity. These thiazide diuretics will inhibit the sodium and chloride channel which is present in the distal converted tubule. So at the distal converted tubule there is a sodium chloride channels are present. So these drugs will inhibit the sodium chloride channels, thereby the reabsorption of the sodium from the lumen is decreased. So thereby the sodium content is increased in the urine. Okay, so in this way this sulfonamide derivative shows the diuretic activity. Another class of diuretics are nothing but acidic diuretics. Example for these acidic diuretics are nothing but inorganic cations. So some of the inorganic cations will produce the weak diuretic activity. So will produce the weak diuretic activity or weak acidotic diuresis. Examples are ammonium chloride, ammonium nitrite. So these are some examples of acidic diuretics. Here we consider this ammonium chloride as prototype, and here we can see the mechanism of action in case of ammonium chloride. In the liver, ammonium chloride is subjected to metabolism. metabolism. So that means it is converted into ammonium ion and chlorine ions. Ammonium ion and chlorine ions. So that means generally the metabolism which is happened in the liver is nothing but conversion of ammonium chloride into urea. Conversion of ammonium chloride into urea. So we know that the structure of urea, so that means the exact thing which is happened in the liver when the ammonium chloride is subjected to metabolism is nothing but this ammonium chloride is converted into ammonia, and this will enter into the urea cycle. And in this urea cycle there is a production of urea and it gets excreted. So that is happening. So during the process of conversion into ammonia, this ammonium chloride will produce the ammonium ion and chloride ion. Ammonium ion and chloride ion. And this produced ammonium ions, this ammonium ion is converted into ammonia and H plus ions. Here it is they mentioned as hydronium ion. Hydronium ion or H plus ions. H plus ions are produced. And this produced H plus ions will combine with the bicarbonate. So will combine with the bicarbonate. This H plus ions will neutralize or buffered with the bicarbonate ion, and thereby it liberates the carbon dioxide and water. Carbon dioxide and water. So that means there is a acidosis will takes place. So the ammonium ion, when it is subjected to converting into ammonium and H plus ion, the H plus ion concentration is increased. That means it increases the acidity in urine. Acidity in urine. So that's why these ammonium chloride generally used in systemic alkaluria. So when the alkaline content is increased in the urine, then ammonium chloride is used as the treatment. And the chloride which is produced from the ammonium chloride shows the diuretic activity by combining with sodium which is present in the urine and excreted as sodium chloride. So for the electrolytic balance, the chloride which is produced from the ammonium chloride, so the sodium chloride which is produced from the ammonium chloride will combine with the sodium which is present in the urine, and they can form as the sodium chloride, and this sodium chloride is excreted. So thereby the sodium reabsorption is decreased from the urine. So in this way these drugs will act as the diuretics. Students, once again I am repeating the mechanism of action in case of ammonium chloride. So when this ammonium chloride is subjected to metabolism in liver, it can able to produce the H plus ions and chloride ions during its metabolism. The H plus ions which are produced will react with the bicarbonate ions and forms the carbon dioxide and water. Thereby the acidity of the urine is increased. Thereby the acidity of the urine is increased. So for that reason these NH4Cl, that is ammonium chloride, is used in the treatment of systemic alkaluria. Systemic alkaluria. That means, so when the alkaline nature of the urine is increased, in that case the ammonium chloride is used as the treatment. And the diuretic nature of this ammonium chloride is produced by the excess amount of chlorine which is produced during the metabolism of ammonium chloride. The chlorine which is produced from the ammonium chloride will combine with the sodium which is present in the lumen to form the sodium chloride and it gets excreted. So that means for maintaining the electrolytic balance between the chlorine and sodium, so they can form into sodium chloride. And this will be excreted through the urine. So in this process, the sodium which is available for the reabsorption is decreased. So the sodium which is available for the reabsorption is decreased. So in that way, the sodium reabsorption is decreased by the ammonium chloride. By this we completed the diuretics. Up to now we discussed about the different classification of diuretics. In that we discussed about the chemical nature of the diuretics, their mechanism of action, structural activity relationship. In next video, we'll discuss about the synthesis, properties and pharmacological uses of some important diuretic agents. Thank you.